Hi, everyone. Mike White here. Welcome to this week's vlog post. It never ceases to amaze me how, in an attempt that people want to automate their businesses, they really forget the power behind keeping the person in the process. And as we approach the last 90 days of 2024, in which we can earn money for this calendar year, it really becomes a challenge for people like me to try to convey to you how automating your processes, how to deal with technology in a way uh, where you're doing things like voicemailing directly, phoning directly into voicemail, doing mass email blasts, even some of the content that you can post on social media being generic may not be in your best interest. And by eliminating your personal connection to the people you're trying to reach, you could be costing yourself many more opportunities than you'd actually get in front of and be able to close. Because what happens is when you put a generic message out there, when you blast a generic message, all it does for the customer is get them to think about what it is that you're talking about. And without specifics or without, real information, that client is apt to have that seed planted, but without specific direction, they're left to go to the internet and start searching. And you know what happens when that happens? They're going to end up engaging in a conversation with probably the best liar on the internet. Let's be honest. We've all seen it in our industry. Promises get made and promises don't get kept. And even if somebody is telling them the truth specifically about what they might be able to do, the problem becomes the answer that they get to the question that they asked may be an accurate answer to that specific question, but it's not the best answer nor the best option for that client because that client didn't know to ask different questions. And it really is important that we know this, that when we're reaching out to people specifically in times now for taking advantage of potential refinance opportunities. And it reminds me of a story that happened just this past week in my client conversations. One of my clients told me that one of their clients was approached by somebody who had sent them a message about how they could save them money by doing a VA IRL on their loan. Obviously, somebody who has purchased database information or purchased a leads list of some kind, clearly. And they basically just sent them an email saying, here, we can save you about $250 a month if you just do this VA IRL. And so, to the client's credit, the client looked at that and didn't know whether it was real, didn't know if it was a good thing or not, decided to call this particular loan officer back. And when they had that conversation, it took less than 5 minutes for this loan officer to speak to that client and engage them, about what was going on in their life and where they were and how things were going and what their plans were, to realize that in this marketplace, given all the things that have happened recently over the years, that there was an opportunity here. And when we've talked about how many people have struggled financially, how they've accumulated debt, how the payments on those debts keep going up, and things like what was a very small payment on a HELOC loan or whatever has now grown significantly. And so by 5 minutes worth of questions and answers, this loan officer realized VA IRL, while it could save them money, was not in their best interest or certainly wasn't their only option. And when they did the math, a conforming cash out refi to pay off some other outstanding debt lowered this couple's total monthly obligations by more than $1,000. Now, again, it's not going to happen every time. Again, the VA are a perfectly good loan for people that are just in a situation where the rest of it is not going to matter. But in this particular circumstance, since time had passed and other things had passed and things have happened, this person was better served not taking the quick fix, although it would have helped them to the tune of $250 or so a month. It wouldn't have been as impactful to this family as it was doing a cash out refi and paying off other debts so that their total monthly payments were significantly lower and gave this family some much needed breathing room. And I think it's really important that you remember this. It's about having those conversations. It's about putting that person back into the process by knowing how to ask certain questions about certain situations, because we're in a marketplace. Rates are going to continue to go lower for the foreseeable future. There are also going to be hundreds, if not thousands, of loan officers out there from all over the country buying these leads lists and pouncing on people, with offers and conversations about what they're doing. And the challenge is going to be is you don't want your clients getting in the way of incomplete or misinformation. And so it's your job to make sure that you're personally connecting to your people. And there's nothing wrong with text messages or emails or what have you. But the reality of it is you know what? I would much rather you take the time and prepare your list and make 3, 4, 5, 10 phone calls a day to people that you've already done the research on, where you might be able to benefit them significantly by having the conversation about their current situation and what their future intentions might be. Because who knows, now may be the perfect time for them to think about, instead of refinancing their house, selling the house and buying the one that they really want and paying off debt, or just moving into the house that they have always wanted or were planning to move to anyway, or in the future. The future may be now for them. You're not going to know unless you engage in the conversation. And by the way, how hard would it be if you engaged in these refi conversations and the outcome for them that was going to work best was for them to sell their house and buy another one? Have you got any realtor referral partners that would be happy to have the opportunity to list a house and help them buy their next one? Of course. How many times would you have to do that between now and the end of the year? To make it worthwhile, taking some time, planning out your calls, looking at your database, creating buckets where it is beneficial for people to go through this process. Because again, the way I see it, this is going to be a slow, steady process lower. And the people that you refinance now may be, targets again next year or the year after, depending on how long it takes the Fed to lower rates. And again, we know that we're in a restrictive position. We know that yesterday's CPI numbers were right about where they were anticipated to be. Today, we're going to have PPI numbers. We'll see what they say. We're going to have initial and continuing claims. We'll see what they say. Could be market movers. Next week, we got the all-important Fed meeting. I don't think it's a secret that the Fed will likely cut. Words are out there that, the markets are pricing in a minimum of a 25 basis point cut. Many people are forecasting that we're going to see cuts through the remainder of the year, totaling 75 to 100 basis points by, next year. Who knows? But we know that the Fed has been overly restrictive, and they're going to take a move to try to get to at least a neutral policy. And on the way to that neutral policy, is we're going to start to see overall price improvement, not only in the mortgage market, but we're also going to see a lot of the compression that we felt over the years start to abate. And so there are going to be plenty of opportunities going into the future, but you've got to pay attention. You can't put all your eggs in one basket. This is not a refinance free for all where you're going to go out there and refinance everybody, today. Again, you have to look at these things. And remember, these things are important to have conversations with your client about what you're seeing and how. Is it possible that you can refinance people now and again next year? Sure, it's entirely possible. We don't know where rates are going to end up, but it has to be of value to them today. And for many people, the value would be selling their house, buying the new one, and then refinancing the new one a year or so from now if the market continues to go lower, because at least they've locked in the price. And that's the other thing we have to be on guard for, is people who you've pre-approved, who are going to hear all the talks about rates going lower and saying, you know what, we're going to sit on the sidelines and wait and see how low rates go. Well, that could take a year. And we all know with price appreciation, the cost of waiting is significant. And you have to be prepared to have those conversations. So as always, you want to reach out with questions or comments. If you're thinking about reaching out to me and booking a business planning session for October, the best way to do that is Mike, imtcoaching.com. We'll talk to you again next week. Take care.